It's cold out there. Good morning. This is the morning buzz. Yes, it's freezing outside today. I saw in my car -9 degrees. My fingers, I can't feel them. My lips are chapped. My face is chapped. I hate this kind of weather. Real quick, some housekeeping things. I know over the weekend there was a lot of hiccups with our regular programming. That is because one of our receivers is down, so that affects some shows, not all shows. It will affect most shows on the weekend. So we do want to get that up and running for you. Perhaps it will happen on Tuesday, but your regular scheduled programming for today should not be interrupted. It's just a couple of shows where the receiver is shot. I don't know if it had to deal with the winter storm or what, but anytime it snows, it's a pain in the arse. I'll tell you that. So we're making it work. And of course, this show is live. So we've got that show all taken care of. The Morning Buzz, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. weekdays, Monday through Friday. Some of the shows they come down via network or receiver, picks up the signal, and that's not happening for a couple of the shows. So all of our local programming is going to be up and running just fine. It's just some things from the network. But Dan Bongino, Glenn Beck, they shouldn't be affected. Sean Hannity and Mark Levin are line up during the week. But text in if you hear anything funky. You can always let me know 309-451-9299. That helps me out. And we'll get it up and running for you in a jiff as soon as we can. But apologies and thank you for your patience. We've got so much to cover today. It's Monday morning, and you know what that means. We've got to talk politics. We've got to talk politics. Today is also Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So we're going to get into a little bit of history as well this morning. But first, are Democrats forcing Americans to house illegal immigrants in their homes? Well, not exactly, not yet. But Elon makes a great point with this tweet, and he didn't come out and say that illegals are coming into your homes. He said that that is a possibility that that's going to happen. So the leftists are out there misinformation, disinformation, bleh, just because Elon got out there and said, "Hey, this is something that could be potentially happening," and Democrats themselves have said, "Yes, this could happen." So then I do want to get into Kevin Hart's terrifying experience with phone addiction. Now there is this one book I've read and I've listened to via audiobook. It's called Digital Detox. And this is a really cool way to get your family to detox from social media and from the cell phones. I recommend the book, but I also saw Kevin Hart's clip he was on with Joe Rogan, and this clip is going to wake you up to the dark side of social media. So we're going to get to that. Plus, some tragic news this morning. The Iowa principal. I covered this story at length. It was in Iowa and out of Des Moines. It was kind of I think it was like 20 minutes away from Des Moines, Iowa. But the principal there at this school, it's called Perry High School. He was shot along with a sixth grade boy, and this Iowa principal died after being shot by this gender fluid mass shooter. Yes. Some tragic news this morning, but I've got to cover it here on the Morning Buzz. As always, I'm live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can find me on YouTube, Cat Peterson 929. Let's get into it. Elon Musk, he's embroiled in this controversy because he put a tweet out there. This time, and that happens a lot, okay? But this time, he's implying that when they run out of schools to displace American students from, you're going to have to expect to open up your house to illegal immigrants. You open up your home and allow those illegal immigrants to reside in your extra bedrooms. The words misinformation and disinformation are being thrown around as usual. But what Elon says here, it's not really that far of a stretch, folks. Let's start with a little reading comprehension because the libs just don't get it. No, Elon did not say illegals were coming for your homes. He implies that cities, aka progressives, who run these cities, would. Okay, the illegals are not going to be placed in their without the green light from the progressives who run these cities. Okay. I would not doubt Bloomington and Normal would make this a thing, especially if we start to see um, Chicago ship their immigrants here because they're at capacity in these migrant shelters. Okay, the Inn of Chicago, they're probably one of the largest migrant shelters. I think they're housing like 2,300 or something crazy like that. But here's what Elon said. He retweeted this video, and I'll get to the video here in a second. But he says, "This is what happens when you run out of hotel rooms. Soon cities will force uh, kids out of schools, and they'll force them to vacate and run, and the cities will run out of schools to vacate. Then they'll come after your homes." And then he tweets this video and he's referencing the Brooklyn High School that was shut down for an entire day, sending the tax-paying families made up of legal American citizens, mind you. They sent these families and they said, you know what, the kids are going to remotely learn because the illegal immigrants, they need a place to go. And I want you to keep in mind that Brooklyn, they voted 74% for Democrat Joe Biden in the 2020 election and 72% for Democrat Kathy Hochul in 2022. Okay, so Brooklyn, they vote Dem. And here is the Democrat Congresswoman. Her name is Yvette Clark. And she says something here that's going to raise your eyebrows. You're going to say, is that even legal? Uh, yeah. So let's take a listen. She's saying the quiet part out loud about the border. Here we go.
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. We have a diaspora that can absorb a significant number of.
Okay. That clip is not working. So we are going to just tell you what she says. So she gets out there and she says that she wants her district. She wants more people in her district for redistricting purposes. So she wants these illegal immigrants as a voter. She wants them to vote for her. Okay, so she said the quiet part out loud, quote, "I need more people in my district just for redistricting purposes." So she wants more people in her district to vote for her. And this is what this is all about. It's the great replacement. They need a new voter base because they know that people are waking up uh, to this Democrat policies, these progressive run cities. It's not working. They go home. They're like, man, how am I spending $200 more a month on groceries than I was 3, 4 years ago? How am I spending 1,000 a month more on groceries than I was 3 years ago? So journalismers, they're now attacking Elon Musk because they've said the obvious thing out loud. Okay, I just talked about New York Congressman Clark. She said the quiet part out loud that she wants more people in her district and she's okay with the illegal immigrants coming in. She won re-election, by the way, in Brooklyn with 81% of the vote. So, we are going to take a quick break here coming up in just a little bit. I'm going to finish this up with Elon Musk. Journalismers are now creating content attacking Elon Musk for saying the obvious thing out loud. Uh, Obviously, Democrats have said the obvious thing out loud. No Democrat has literally said, we're coming for your homes. The immigrants are coming for their homes. Obviously, they haven't said that out loud, that direct line, but they're saying Elon is causing all kinds of misinformation and disinformation by saying, "Hey, this is the next step." They're vacating schools to make room for migrants. Now they want you. Now they're probably going to want you to give up your house. They've vacated schools. They've shut down hotels. They ran out of space when it comes to the hotels. They're running out of space when it comes to schools. They have to shut down entire schools in Brooklyn. This is Brooklyn High School. They shut it down to house the illegal immigrants there. They needed a place to go. And the students at that Brooklyn High School, they had to remotely learn. They're the tax-paying, legal American citizens. And the journalismers, they're out there attacking Elon. You remember the gas stove thing, real quick? Last January, it was reported that Joe Biden and the Biden administration, they were actually considering a ban on gas stoves in your home. Okay. Now, Democrats are on record saying that this is a good idea. They said it out loud. They think that this is a good idea. Gas stoves are bad for the environment, yada, yada, peanut butter. Okay. It caused bad PR for Biden because people love their gas stoves and a lot of people have gas stoves. So this caused a lot of bad PR for Joe Biden and for the Biden administration. So the media was dispatched and they were calling it fake news, fake news, fake news. Joe Biden's not banning gas stoves. A few days later, we had Democrat governors starting to ban gas stoves. Okay, so that is out there. There's Democrats. I'm pretty sure Gretchen Whitmer, Michigan governor, she's got that in place along with other green weenie things. But Democrats have started to ban gas stoves in their states. And Democrats have already said citizens might need to house illegals. Okay. They've already said that. And I've got to take a quick break. You're listening to the Morning Buzz Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, smash the like button if you're watching, and we'll be right back on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. A little squirrely over the weekend as far as programming. There's a few shows where the receiver is not picking up the shows and the frequency and the signal. So text me, let me know if you hear anything wonky today. We are working to resolve that. We're working on a solution. So go ahead and text me if you ever find or if you ever hear anything wonky. 309 We will work until we figure it out. So just happens with winter storms. I notice this, like, if it snows or if it gets really cold for some odd reason, our signal gets all screwed up. So, um, I'm working on it. Thank you for texting over the weekend. It shouldn't impact your programming today, your regular scheduled programming, but, we'll see. You might hear some Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, and Dan Bongino today, or you might not. We'll have to see, what happens. So, give me a text at 309-451-9299. Before we took the break, we were talking a little bit about Democrats and how they have um, already said that citizens might need to house illegal immigrants. Okay. And there's a little something called the Third Amendment. You cannot force people into other people's homes. That's wrong. I don't think I need to, um, explain why that's wrong. But Dan, he's on the text line this morning. He says there's plenty of people on fixed incomes who should welcome people into their homes and collect rent money. No one condemns Airbnb. See, the difference here, Dan, would be it would be their choice. Like Airbnb or that's a thing that people choose to do, rent out, rooms in their houses. However, this is not going to be a choice. Okay. The kids didn't have a choice in evacuating, really, and vacating the premises of their Brooklyn high school. That's a high school in which their parents pay taxes for, and they pay taxes for, and ultimately will pay taxes for if they live there. And these kids were forced to be launched into some sort of remote learning because the illegal immigrants needed a place to go. And Brooklyn has voted 74% Democrat, 74% uh, Democrat Joe Biden in the 2020 election. Then we had 72% Democrat for Kathy Hochul in the 2022 election. Joe Biden in the 2020 election. I think I said that. And then there was this Democrat congresswoman. Her name is Yvette Clarke, and she actually won re-election with 81% of the vote. And this woman comes out and she says the quiet part out loud. The reason why she wants these immigrants to come into her district is because she needs more people in her district because of redistricting. That's what she said out loud. She said the quiet part out loud about the border. That's why they're doing this, because they want more voters. Okay, so Elon Musk, he gets out there and he tweets and he says, "Look, that's what's coming next. Okay, that's the next step." So far, they've been housing them in hotels. The Inn of Chicago, it's at capacity 2,300. There's multiple shelters, immigrant shelters around the city. Now they're at capacity. Okay, I think it's been 30,000 illegal immigrants have been shipped up to Chicago from Texas. And now they've got no space for them. Now they're shipping them to places like Kankakee, DeKalb, Rosemont, Schaumburg, Joliet, and pretty soon probably McLean County. And there's just no space for them. So eventually the hotels are going to fill up in these areas, and then they'll have to start housing them in taxpayer funded places, which would be the schools. And they will have to vacate the children from the school in order to make room for the illegal immigrants. And I love how Dan, he says, it's sad when an emergency happens and children are asked to understand and to stay home and remotely learn. It's very unchristlike to be upset about this. These children have no say in what's going on. Okay. They didn't even vote. Okay. They have no voting powers. Now, the people of Brooklyn, they chose this. It's very sad when you have children forced to vacate their place of learning. Okay. Now, me, I wouldn't even have them in that school. But that's besides the point. Uh, they are there to learn, and there is a taxpayer funded service provided via public education. We pay the teacher salaries, the administrator salaries. That's how they get paid. Okay. They are not in the business of making a product and selling that product for profit. We pay that school for them to teach our children. And they are not doing that. Okay. If I pay the mechanic to fix my car and then he returns it to me without fixing it, that we would have some issues, okay? That's unchristlike. When you pay someone for a service and they do not provide that service, that's called stealing. Okay, thou shalt not steal is something that is pretty known, and that's biblical morality there. And they are robbing the taxpayers in Brooklyn of these services that they're supposed to provide. They're getting the money. Now, I don't think that they issued the parents refunds for their taxes, and I don't think that happened. Okay. And now they're forcing the children, causing them to leave their school, leave the place of learning. It's very disgusting. And for you to sit there, Dan, and say that it's unchristlike to not welcome these immigrants into this place of learning is deeply misguided. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that one. Smash the like button if you're watching. I'm live, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. One more quick story about the immigrants, and then I do want to switch gears and talk a little bit about Kevin Hart. And I have recently read this book. It's called Detox. It's a great book. It's Christian based book. And Kevin Hart was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I saw this clip, and I'm just more and more. I need to. I it's a sign, that I should talk about the rise of social media and phone addiction, and how this experience that Kevin Hart shares is actually going to wake you up to the dark side of social media. So I'm excited to share that with you here coming up in about 10 minutes. Melrose, Massachusetts, though, I want to start here. They're holding this event, and it's called Exploring the Host Home Experience. Okay. And they're hosting this event to try to encourage residents to house illegals in their homes. Okay. So Elon Musk, he puts out a tweet and he says, hey, the hotels are out of space. Soon cities will run out of schools to vacate. They're going to run out of schools to vacate because in Brooklyn, this high school, they had to vacate all these kids to make room for the illegals to be housed there. And when I say illegals, we're talking military aged men. And the cities are going to run out of schools to vacate. The schools are going to fill up, and eventually they're going to come for your home. And there's all kinds of journalismers out there saying, oh, this is misinformation. This is disinformation. Okay. But the Democrats have already said this out loud, that they are calling on residents to open up their homes to illegal immigrants, to house illegal immigrants. And this is the case in Melrose, Massachusetts. A few months ago, the governor asked citizens to take illegals into their home. Massachusetts is the only state in the nation with a right to shelter law. which means the state has to provide shelter for anyone who needs it. Okay, so this is the only state in the nation to do that. Elon is right. This is happening. And these journalismers are at a stage where they claim anyone who repeats things Democrats have said out loud themselves and are doing themselves is spreading misinformation. Okay. This is not spreading misinformation. I just told you in Melrose, Massachusetts, that's what they're doing. They're hosting events to encourage residents to house illegals in their home. For right now, it's of their own free will. But just wait. The Third Amendment, we know that, history will repeat itself. And the Third Amendment will be infringed, and we will be forced to house these illegals or face jail time or face beat downs by the cops. Okay. If we don't comply with this, it's an emergency. You have to comply. You have to comply and you have to house this 30-year-old man. And by the way, he's got prior convictions, but you have to house him anyway because he's here illegally and he needs a place to stay. We're a right to shelter state. And you have to shelter this man because he needs it. Okay. And if you don't, we're going to lock you up because that's the law. Okay. So we're not far from that. And Elon is onto something with his tweet here. The next stage. Okay. The next stage is them asking for you to house illegals. There's probably going to be some sort of benefit. Maybe you get like $1,000 a month or something from the state in order to house this illegal immigrant. And if you do that, maybe you get all kinds of tax reductions. Who knows? I have no idea what kind of incentive they're going to create, but that's the next stage. They're going to ask you to house these illegals. And a lot of people probably won't take them up on this offer. Maybe a lot of low income families will if they need the extra cash flow. But that's the next stage. And keep in mind, Joe Biden still is out there saying there's not a border crisis. There's no crisis at the border. He's still out there and he does not think that there's a crisis at the border. We are we are vacating schools. Kids are vacating the schools, the premises to make room for illegal immigrants to be housed in the schools. Okay. What do you think the next stage is going to be? Now, this is a rhetorical question. Okay, obviously, the next stage is they're going to be asking you to house illegals in your house. The hotels are full. The schools are full. the that there's only one more place to go, and that is to infringe on your Third Amendment rights. And they're going to force people to reside in your home. That's what the government will do. All right, I'm going to be back. Smartphones are a big problem, and people are hooked on their social media feeds. I'm going to be talking about Kevin Hart and this clip on the Joe Rogan podcast. That's next on The Buzz. Good morning. Hey, if you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. And fighting aged men as well. Yeah, so I have shared with you before the Springfield police. I've tried to contact them. They have completely ignored me. And from what I understand, he's still at large. That's Gabriel Calixto. He's a military aged fighting man who was known to authorities because he served out a conviction in the Illinois Department of Corrections for kidnapping a girl, and then he got out. He was supposed to serve 6 years. He got out earlier. He was supposed to be deported. He was here illegally. He was on DACA. He overstayed his DACA, and then he wound up stabbing poor Emma Schaefer. Emma Schaefer, she's a Springfield gal, and she was stabbed to death. And allegedly, this is he's the suspect. And he's at large. He's at large. And that's the type, I mean, in Chicago, there's this guy, and I'll just pull this up real quick. This is like Chicago's very own version of The Sound of Freedom. And I think it's so crucial that we remember that there are these types of people who are coming into the country. Okay. Some of them might be, just people trying to find money and prosperity and have a better life. Smash the like button. This is city's 92.9. Some people might actually want that. Okay, they might want prosperity, a better way of life. However, that's a bill of goods that they're sold. There is no better life here in the United States. Ask any illegal immigrant who's sitting on the corner panhandling. Hey, knowing what you know now, would you have come to the United States? I guarantee you, they will tell you, no, I wouldn't have come to the United States because I was lied to. They said that they were going to give me all of this free stuff, and they're not giving me this free stuff. So I am stuck on the street corner with my baby and with my wife, and now I have to panhandle to eat. Okay. They lied and they said that there was all this free stuff. And I had $9,000. I spent all of it to get here. And they lied to me. They said that I was going to be able to have all this free stuff. And we don't have the money. Okay. The government is not a business. They don't make anything to sell. Okay. The only way of getting money is by taxation. Okay. On you. That's their only way to get money to give to the immigrants. Now, Chicago's very own version of Sound of Freedom prosecutors say a Venezuelan man who is in the U.S. illegally. His name is Elbiro Vasquez Roman. He's 24 years old. He's at the center of a migrant sex trafficking ring with women being forced into prostitution, and their families' lives have been threatened. Now, he held two women at gunpoint, allegedly, in this Austin neighborhood that's just a few minutes from Brandon Johnson's house, and he forced them to perform sex acts. The Cook County judge has denied this guy release, no safety act for him, no end cash bail for him. There have been a lot of open air drug deals going on, specifically at this Inn of Chicago, where 2,300 migrants are being housed. And there's prostitutions. There's a lot of things going on in these migrant shelters. You're listening to the Morning Buzz. Just hang out a quick second and we'll be back. Hi, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. It's cold out there. My truck said this morning -9 degrees. It's so cold. It's so hard to keep the house warm when it's like this. When it's like this, the house just gets super drafty. And my parents, I always grew up with, I was spoiled. I had a fireplace. It was a wood burning fireplace. It was so nice and toasty. Now I'm out on my own and we don't have a fireplace. So it's pretty drafty in these big house, like a bigger house. I live in like a pretty tall house, and it's very drafty. It's an older home in Lincoln, and it's just it's drafty and it gets cold. It's hard to heat. But there's all kinds of things you can do. You can try to insulate your windows. You can try to use the oven if you're cooking or baking. Made some bread. I like to leave that oven door open to release some of that heat to keep the house warm. It's hard to keep it like higher temperature. Um, but yeah, the furnaces are working overtime this week. Hopefully it warms up a little bit after Tuesday, after tomorrow. And then I think we're gonna get a heat wave here. I think next Sunday it's gonna be like about 20 degrees warmer than what it was. So this past weekend. Sunday was very, very cold. I think it's gonna be a touch warmer today than it was yesterday. But with a cold snap, that always means that we're dealing with some monkeys, some tech monkeys, some squirrels in the system. So over the weekend, there were a few shows that messed up. And it's because the receiver is not picking up the signal. I have no idea if it's because of the winter storm or what it is, but if you ever hear something wonky on air, you can always text me, let me know at 309-451-9299. We should have all those issues resolved by tomorrow for sure. But your regular scheduled programming should be top notch today. We've got Glenn Beck, Dan Bongino, Sean Hannity, and Mark Levin, and then Mark Lee Van Camp and Robbins. And then in the overnights, Ben Shapiro. Okay, so before we took the break, I was telling you guys a little bit about Kevin Hart, and he was on with Joe Rogan, and he shared a bit of his experience with phone addiction. And what he says is going to wake you up to the dark side of social media. So I want to get to that because I read this book. It's called Digital Detox, and I highly recommend it for anybody. But I want to get to that. And then I also want to talk about the Iowa principal. He died. Now, he was shot and he was in the hospital. They thought he was going to make it, but he's battled this for about a week now. And he was shot by a gender fluid mass shooter at this Perry High School. So we've got to talk about that. It's tragic news. There was also a sixth grade boy who was shot and was killed by this gender fluid mass shooter. And we need to start having conversations about, hey, people who identify this way, people who are transgender, they tend to not only kill themselves, but kill other people. Okay, so we need to have a conversation. I'm not for taking anybody's guns away, but if we were to have that conversation, shouldn't we take them away from the transgender community? Statistically, there are plenty of school shooters or school shooters, mass shooters who go by different types of pronouns or who are so called gender fluid. So, if we were to have a conversation about taking people's guns away, wouldn't you think we would be talking about taking away the transgender individuals' guns? And now I don't know if it's because of hormone. We should be having conversations about mental health and the mental health of those who identify as gender fluid. Okay, so let's talk about Kevin Hart, social media. This was, look, smartphones, they're really cool. They were really cool at first, but now they're a big, big problem. They've gotten people hooked on their social media feeds, and when they've got their phone in their hand, they'll play one of their 20 premium games that they've downloaded. They're not really free. It's, free for the first couple of rounds, and then you got to pay a bunch of money for these games on their phones. I don't have games on my phones. That's just one more thing that I don't need on my phone. Um, and then there's the, oh, I gotta buy something from Amazon. I gotta get that thing on Amazon. And it causes all kinds of short-term memory loss. And IQ scores are statistically going down. because of this a little thing in our pockets, our cell phones. It's a problem, and it's one that I've been concerned with for the past few years. I recently read Digital Detox. This is a way to get the family to detox for two. The whole goal is 2 weeks. And do a digital detox. I highly recommend your family do this. I'm doing it. And Kevin Hart has kind of implemented his own digital detox, and he talked about it on the Joe Rogan podcast. Now, he shared a story about when he realized his smartphone had turned into more of a curse than it was a blessing. He makes a couple of points on the podcast. And one of the key points, one of the two key points that I'm going to share with you is one is the sudden realization of the addiction and how addicted and reliant we have become on our smartphones. For him, Kevin Hart, he describes this time when his phone went dead and he was on a road trip and he realized how little he knew without his phone, where to go, who to call. Yeah, for me, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I've memorized a couple of numbers, my family's numbers, and that's about it. So if my phone dies and I don't know where I'm at, guess who I'm calling? I'm calling dad. Okay. I memorized his number and he knows how to get everywhere without a phone. He still doesn't have a smartphone to this day. He does not want one. He has never wanted one, and he just kind of knows street names and how many turns it takes to get to a specific destination. So I will be calling my dad every single time I need directions if my phone dies. um but Kevin Hart, there was another takeaway here, and he said that he has been putting his phone away at a certain point of the day. So to be present with his family. So it's like one of those drug commercials from the 80s. I learned it from watching you. Kids will start to pick up device habits because we as adults always have them in our hands. So when our kids are using their phones so much, it's probably because they see you on your phone and they watch your device habits. Okay. Um, and I'm addicted. I'm addicted to the scroll. I'm addicted to the news. I'm addicted to Twitter. And after watching a little bit of the Joe Rogan podcast with Kevin Hart, I started to look at my own life and I realized, man, I am addicted to the scroll. I just scroll and I don't even watch or read anything. I just scroll. Like that's all I do. I don't even read it most of the time. So here's a few changes that I made personally in my life. I do no phones at the dinner table. We sit down and we pray before the dinner, and it's funny because you know during Thanksgiving, if there's kids at the table, they won't fight you on this. It's the adults who might fight you on this. So if you have adults in your life, maybe husband, maybe wife, maybe they'll fight you on this rule that you implement in your home. Hey, no phones at the dinner table. Um, Wear a watch. That's another big one. Wearing a watch, it's part of the problem. I always drag or grab my phone to check the time. I'm going to start wearing a watch so that way when I check my watch, I'm not tempted to go through and check my Twitter, check my email, and I will put my phone back in my pocket, after I check the time. Um, and I think wearing a watch cuts down on a lot of, hey, I gotta check the time, and oops, I got distracted. Now I'm on Twitter. Now I'm checking my email, and oh, I forgot to check the time. Right. So also another big one: listen to radio. I've got to take a quick break, but you are listening to the Morning Buzz. We're going to be back with this conversation. Plus, Rand Paul, he actually made a not endorsement. More on that next. It's Monday. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz, and happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Maybe you're off work today. We are going to be getting into a bit of history when it comes to MLK Jr. Day. And, Martin Luther King Jr., he was the guy who said, I don't see color. He had very colorblind perspective on race. And it's the content of your character. It's not the color of your skin. Martin Luther King Jr. So we're going to be chatting a little bit about that here coming up in just a bit. But first, I was talking about digital detox, and I want to finish that up. Plus, we're going to talk a little bit about the Iowa school shooter. He was gender fluid, and the principal has now died. And there was a sixth grade boy who had died, and we've got to talk about it. We've got to talk about it because I'm not going to shy away from saying that this community has a severe mental health problem. And we're starting to see this. We had the Nashville school shooter, and now we have the Iowa school shooter. There have been several others. So we'll talk about it here on the Morning Buzz. One way I do digital detoxing, so I said, no phones at the dinner table. And then I also said, let's wear a watch so that way I'm not tempted to check the time on my phone and then get distracted and check Twitter and my email. Okay, so those are two things that I do. Now, a third thing that I do is listen to radio instead of Spotify or Apple Music, or listen to a record, vinyl. So in the olden days, you had media collections, and you had a single stereo, and now you have an iPhone with 11 different Bluetooth speakers. And I love music, but I grew up depending on my phone to listen to it. Okay, I really didn't have a CD player, didn't have a vinyl machine or anything like, or vinyl record player. But when I listen to Spotify, it's on my phone, and I typically do this thing where I click on different songs. So while I'm clicking on different songs, I wind up going down a rabbit hole and I start scrolling on Twitter or my email or something like that. And won't you know it, instead of listening to music, I wind up answering a bunch of different emails or retweeting a bunch of different tweets. So I recommend maybe taking a radio to the gym or putting on a record to listen to your music and getting completely off the grid for about an hour or so. So try not to listen to Apple or Spotify. Listen to the radio. We've got 1077 The Bull and Magic 99.5. Those are great stations. You can listen to Cities 92.9 without missing a beat by downloading the app. Just don't touch it, right? Once you have it playing on your phone, just don't touch it. That's the point. You can't really change the programming because the programming is pretty set. The thing that gets me is when I go to change the song on Spotify, I will, because I can change the song to 11 billion different songs, I will get sucked in on my phone. So go outside, touch some grass. I'm back next on the buzz. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. I so do appreciate it. You're kicking it with your girl cat ear. Go ahead and smash the like button. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're going to be talking about this campaign clip. Now, I don't think I can play it, but I'll describe what it is. It's it's hilarious. The Trump campaign nailed it with this ad, um, and it's art. I recommend you go find it on our Facebook page. I'm going to try to play it here, but I'm having some issues. So um, we'll see if they can play it. It's senior living. Trump trolls Joe Biden with this White House senior living ad, where residents feel like presidents. So this is a hilarious ad. He trolls them. Donald Trump. Plus, we're going to talk about Rand Paul, and he just says, "Never Nikki." So he has made his not endorsement of Never Nikki. So we'll chat about that here and more. You're listening to Cities 92.9. Coming up in just a little bit, we will be talking about the Iowa school shooter. He said he was gender fluid, and this principal succumbed to his injuries. So we do have to chat about that. We also have to chat about Trump. He's trolling Joe Biden with this new ad. It's a ad out there. Trump's trolling Joe Biden. It's called the White House Senior Living ad, and it's an ad for the White House. And I mean, it's pretty much like a senior living facility where residents feel like presidents. Okay, so they troll Joe Biden with this amazing clip, and it's a 30-second clip that features these very unflattering shots of Joe Biden, and there's this soft voiceover in the style of a retirement living TV commercials. So there's this voiceover, and they said, "Our vibrant facility offers delightful activities and outings around the clock, professional care, and exquisite homemade meals." So this is what the narrator says. We're going to talk about that clip here coming up in just a bit. Now, before we took the break, I was telling you guys a few things that I do to try to digitally detox. No phones at the dinner table. Then I also have a watch. So when I go to check the time, I check the time and I don't get down a rabbit hole where I'm scrolling on Twitter, scrolling on Facebook, and completely forgetting to check the time. So I also have been trying to listen to more radio and not use the Spotify at the gym. I use the radio so that way I'm not tempted to change the music or change the song. So that way I don't get down a rabbit hole and start scrolling on Twitter. So go outside, touch some grass. Saturdays, this is a fun little fact. I do politics free, which you're like, wow, Cat, you don't pay attention to the news at all on Saturdays. I do. I pay attention, but I try to stay out of the politics. So I follow Disclosed TV a little bit, and I get some of their Telegram. I'm on Telegram, so I have notifications set for specific news channels. But I try to do a politics free Saturday at least. And I know people are like, "What, Cat? How could you?" Uh, People fight me on this, and they're like, "There's no such thing as being politics free." No, there is. You can unplug. Newsflash: the boogeyman isn't going to finally launch its on endgame against you or and against the American people because you decided to log off on Saturday and spend some time with your family and get some fresh air. Okay, so the boogeyman will still be there on Sunday or on Monday when you check the news again. Um, you have to retrain your brain to accept the world, and you've got to accept that the world would get along fine if you aren't connected to it 24/7. Okay, people will fight each other over politics and who is on what side that week. And people will argue over movies, and the news will be every bit of everything sucks, everything's terrible, and oh my gosh, someone did something. Uh, like this, all of that is going to return once you come back after the weekend. So I encourage you. I do a politics free Saturday. I encourage you to go the entire weekend and to do no politics. Okay, take care of yourself first and disconnect the everything's terrible, everything sucks, and oh my gosh, did you hear that somebody did this? Is going to return on Monday. Okay, so disconnect, take care of yourself. But today is Monday, so we are going to get into the news because it's important to stay connected and to learn and to educate yourself and to remain knowledgeable and to stay knowledgeable. Prairie High School principal, his name is Dan. Now, I talked a little bit about Dan. He put himself in harm's way to protect students from this Iowa mass shooter. Now, this was like 20 minutes, I think, northeast of Des Moines, but this was at Prairie High School. He died yesterday, succumbing to his injuries. That's Dan. He sustained a fatal gunshot wound. He lost his battle. He fought hard and gave us 10 days. That we will treasure forever. That's what Dan's wife said, Elizabeth, according to the Associated Press. On January 4th, Dylan Butler, he was 17 years old. He committed a mass shooting in the early mornings at Prairie High School. He killed a sixth grade student and he injured several others. The student was at the high school for the free breakfast program that they had going on, and he used he, they pronouns, and he identified as gender fluid, and he died from a self inflicted gun wound shot to the shot. Okay, so Dan had been shot, and the State Department of Public Safety released a statement and said that the principal acted selflessly and placed himself in harm's way in an apparent effort to protect his students. So Clark Wicks, the school superintendent, called Dan a hero and said that his actions did, in fact, protect students and allowed them to escape the gunman. So Dan was the principal of the high school there since 1995. He's been the principal there. So Butler also killed a kid. He was 11 years old in sixth grade, and the sixth grader was shot 3 times. So, like I said, he identified Dylan Butler as gender fluid. Corporate media outlets suggest that he carried out the attack because he was relentlessly bullied since childhood. There is something to be said about the trans community, and I have said this several times. It does not mean you are a transphobe. Okay, you and even if you there is a completely rational fear in that you believe somebody who identifies as gender fluid is more likely to, one, kill himself, or two, kill other people, or herself, himself. We saw that with the Nashville school shooter. There have been several cases. If you look at the suicide rates, the suicide statistics, that freaks me out. Now, I'm not afraid of people. I am not afraid of any man here on earth. However, I am afraid of an ideology that creates people who are willing to kill themselves and want to kill themselves at a much higher rate than the rest of society. If you look at, white men, white women, and cis men, women, or straight women. Uh, and even if you were to look back into the Holocaust times, I've mentioned this in Auschwitz, the Jewish people were trying to escape Nazi Germany. They were trying to escape the gas chambers. They didn't want to die in the gas chambers, so they would kill themselves. This community kills themselves at a higher rate than those who did in Auschwitz or in these gas chambers um, in the Holocaust times. Okay, Auschwitz. I don't know if that's the gas chamber. I'm not good at history when it comes to the names, but that is true. And to say that, oh, you're transphobic. Well, to be afraid of this ideology is completely rational. Okay. Because things like this happen. Uh, and look at the Nashville school shooter. Look at this guy, the Iowa school shooter, Dylan Butler. There have been several others. When you look at these examples, that stokes a rational fear. That breeds a rational fear when you look at the statistics and when you look at the world around you. And there's people who are afraid of spiders. Spiders kill like maybe one person a year. Okay, if that. And people are terrified of spiders. Me being one of them. That is an irrational fear. So there's if we're going to be taking people's guns away, we should really look at the community here that is suffering mentally. There is a deep mental illness that Dylan went through, and Audrey Hale went through clearly, and they carried out these attacks and killed somebody. So yeah, I this is a heavy story, but I had to talk about it this morning because that's what we do here at Cities 92.9. We talk about the news. Coming up in just about 5 minutes, we'll talk about Rand Paul because Rand Paul made a not endorsement of Nikki Haley. So Rand Paul announced on Thursday that he was going to make an announcement about the 2024 presidential race. Sorry. The 2024 presidential race. So we're going to talk about that here coming up in just a little bit. But first, I do want to talk about Trump trolling Joe Biden in this hilarious senior living facility video. Like I said, I don't know if this is going to play, but we're going to give it a shot. If it doesn't, then we'll, yeah. I'm going to describe what this senior living facility video is all about. So Donald Trump, he's trolling Joe Biden with this senior living facility video, and he labels the White House as a senior living facility. And it says where residents feel like presidents. And it's a 30-second video clip, which features unflattering shots of Joe Biden. And there's this soft voiceover in the style of like these retirement living TV commercials. You know the type. And this is what the narrator says. Our vibrant facility offers delightful activities and outings and round the clock professional care and exquisite house-made meals. And then there's all kinds of shots of Joe Biden looking like he is very, 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 very unwell. There's him eating ice cream, eating a slice of pizza. There's him falling asleep. And the video concludes White House senior living, where residents feel like presidents. Now, this video has been viewed way over 2.7 million times in just the 5 hours that Donald Trump had it on his Instagram page. So, this is a hilarious clip. I'm going to talk about it here coming up on the morning buzz. You know, uh, does life imitate art or does art imitate life? Who cares? I enjoyed this clip and Trump trolling Joe Biden. This seems so real. This seems so real, and I couldn't even tell if it was parody or not. And I was like, did the White House officially become a senior living facility? It's just too accurate to consider it satire. But the Trump campaign, they nailed it with this ad, and all the way down to the chocolate chip ice cream, where at the end they say where residents feel like presidents, and then he's like eating this ice cream cone. First of all, I don't understand how Joe Biden eats this ice cream cone like he does. He puts his entire mouth around the cone. Who does that? Like, what? Like you eat off the sides a little bit of the ice cream cone. Who puts like the entire cone in their mouth? Uh, the cost of the residency at the facility, you ask? Priceless. The mock TV commercial uploaded on Mr. Trump's Instagram page clipped together awkward shots of the current president at the beach eating food, and it ended with him taking a huge bite of the ice cream cone. It's a 30-second clip, and I thought it was hilarious. CNN, they'll say that this is fake news, that they took these clips out of context or whatever. They'll say it's disinformation. Don't let them gaslight you like that. And serious question. Who in the world eats ice cream like Joe Biden does with like the whole cone in his mouth? It's unclear what's going on in his mind at that moment. But the brain freeze that comes after that bite, it's got to be very, very bad. Like, I don't know what's going on in his head where he thinks I've got to eat this entire ice cream cone in like what 4 seconds flat, but I that might be going through his mind at that moment. But I couldn't imagine the brain freeze. As funny as this ad is, it shows serious elder abuse problem that we've got going on with the geriatrics in Congress as well as the leader of the free world. Okay. The average age of a US senator is 65 years old. And I know Trump isn't what you would call young, but hey, at least he's competent enough to know that he wants to run for president. That is not clear with Joe Biden. We don't even know if he truly understands that he is running for president. What do you think Sleepy Joe is probably doing at this moment? Most likely he's asleep. I've never seen Trump fall asleep on camera, not once, and I've seen Joe Biden fall asleep more times than I can count. There is a huge difference between a Donald Trump and a Joe Biden. Okay. Um, I get it, and people are gonna be like, "He didn't fall asleep, he just nodded off." That's what the fake news or, like, that's what the media will say. They'll say, "Oh, that's fake news. He didn't fall asleep, he just nodded off." And I would normally feel pretty bad about making fun of an old man like Joe, except I am spending thousands of dollars per month, and I'm blaming the leader of the free world for for that one, okay? I'm spending thousands of more dollars per month on groceries, and I am blaming this guy for that. And I don't appreciate the de facto open borders, and what it does to the country. And with that, so many other things that has come from this presidency that, sometimes you gotta make light of this situation. To watch him during the Maui memorial service, it wasn't even like it's not even a normal nap. He looks exhausted just to sit down, okay? So he sat down at the Maui memorial service, and he looked terrible, and then he randomly starts nodding, at this memorial service, and he's falling asleep during the memorial service where a bunch of people died because of the Maui wildfires because of the incompetent Democrat leadership in that state. So Biden's going to be 86 at the end of his second term if elected. And he is now the oldest sitting president in history, if you did not know that already. All right, I've got to take a quick break. You're listening to The Morning Buzz. Find my article on the Center Square. It's or on cities929.com. Here's the headline: Chicago schools inspector logs PPP fraud, stolen laptops, and sexual misconduct cases. So, this is actually kind of incredible. The Chicago Public School Inspector General William Fletcher's office, they have this annual report where they look at things like fraud, waste, and misconduct. In the most recent report from the Inspector General's office, the office found 77,000 laptops to be lost or stolen. Well, what the heck? We've got the VP of the Chicago Teachers Union then coming out and saying, "We need more tech coordinators." Wait, so your answer to this, CTU, would be to hire a bunch more people to try to find or to try to get this loss prevention, these tech coordinators. But here's the funny thing: John Kugler, who's a lifelong educator and a former employee of the Chicago Teachers Union, he told me that tech coordinators, no, 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 no. They don't specialize in loss prevention. They just do repairs and they prepare technology. How does he know this? Well, he had a computer lab of his own. And I thought it was interesting. This guy, so from what is it, 2004 to 2010, he worked for the Chicago Public Schools. And then from 2010 to 2021, he was quite literally employed by the union. He said he knows these people. And he said they know where these computers are. He goes, even 20 years ago, we had the technology installed on these laptops to know exactly where they are and who took these computers. We know where every single one of those computers are today. And he even jumped to this conclusion that Potter and the CTU, they aren't going to try to get those computers back because this is a reparations. Jackson Potter is all about reparations, according to Kugler, and this is the reason why they won't go and get those computers is because they were either lost or stolen by predominantly Black communities or Black areas or Black schools. And Kugler went and he said, "Look, they put an asset tag on these tech coordinators, and that's all they do. And ultimately, the loss prevention is up to the teacher and the students and the administration. And if they are lost or stolen, then that falls on administration to discipline the person who lost it or to discipline the person who stole it." So he worked in a computer lab for years, and the total loss. So this is the big thing. This is $23 million in taxpayer costs that was just pissed out the window. Okay, like that's a lot of money. $23 million taxpayer cost. And here's the thing: they can just keep going back to the taxpayer saying, "Oh, we need more tech coordinators. We need this. We need that. We need more laptops." The school needs a complete overhaul. And what's interesting, and I don't know what you guys think about this, but text me, let me know on the Morning Buzz text line. That's 309-451-9299. Fletcher, the inspector general, his report also recommends tech coordinators. Now, this is a quote from him. He says, "One of the things in our performance review showed us that some schools hire their own technology coordinators, and they're called techos, and those are CPS employees, whereas other schools, they hire an external vendor or company, and those are third party technology coordinators. And they don't receive centralized training and they don't really know how to put in data correctly into the system." So overall, he said that, their recommendation was to have school based technology coordinators. Well, that's interesting. The inspector general report is mirroring what Jackson Potter wants. I just find that interesting. Um, they did some audits, and Fletcher said that the schools that had school based technology coordinators, the audits that were submitted by those schools, they tended to have fewer lost and stolen devices. So, yeah, I'm not going to say anything, but yeah, it begs the question: why does the Inspector General report kind of mirror and recommend what Jackson Potter, the CTU vice president, wants? Tech coordinators. I don't know. Um, Either way, I mean, this was just grossly, uh, misuse of taxpayer funds. They aren't trying to retrieve those computers. They're not going. They're just lost. They're stolen. 77,000 of them. And we've got 446 sexual misconduct complaints received by the office as well. 7% were sexual acts, 26% were sexual misconduct allegations, and then 67% were these guideline violations. So it is important to note that of these 446 sexual misconduct complaints, that most of them were things like teachers violating these guidelines, where it relates to these inappropriate boundaries. So, for example, giving students presents, texting with students, or giving those students rides, and blurring the lines between, hey, I'm your teacher, and this, you are a student. The Chicago Board of Education, by the way, they're pushing for the removal of police officers in schools. So I don't think that's really going to help with the whole sexual misconduct thing. I would imagine that just a presence, a police presence at the school would deter these disgusting CPS teachers who do these even acts like guideline violations. Okay, I don't want to sleep on the guideline violations; those are bad. Okay, texting a student, and I don't like it. I think that it fosters a sentiment that could lead to sexual abuses or sexual misconduct. And it's wrong. There's a reason why those boundaries are there, and there's a boundary between staff and students, and that boundary has to be respected. That's why you call your teacher Mrs. Smith, Mr. Smith. You don't call them by their first name. I had teachers who preferred me to call them by their first name, and I thought that was very odd. And I look back on it now as an adult, and I said, that's inappropriate, even. So, anyway, like I said, they're getting rid of police officers stationed in schools. That's what the Chicago Board of Education wants to do. And to be quite frank with you, I don't think that's going to help the situation, where we've got 446 complaints, um, either for sex abuse, sexual misconduct, or the guideline violations. Also, in this report, you won't believe it, the government offered taxpayer-funded PPP loans. That's Paycheck Protection Program loans. My employer at the time probably got some PPP loans. That's why he was able to pay us $15 an hour. I was a waitress, and we were paid $15 an hour to, kind of clean the restaurant, to do takeout, to pick up and carry out and things like that. And I was thinking to myself, man, where does he have all this money? It's probably because he got the PPP loans. Anyway, CPS employees lied on their applications, and they did not qualify for those loans. Now, the report says there was 810 employees that took out PPP loans. 16 of those 810 were asked questions, and later they were forced to resign, or they were fired because they lied on their applications, saying that, yeah, I have this business and I have payroll, and I need this much money to keep them on the payroll. And there was some investigations done, and they found that these people were either just straight up lying about those businesses. They didn't even have them. They were fake businesses and completely made up from whole cloth, or they were businesses that did not uh, yield a whole lot of money. They lied about how much money their business brought in and who was all on payroll. So, to top this all off, Chicago Public Schools, they have received about $1.93 billion in state and local taxpayer funding since the 2018-2019 school year. Okay. 100 or 1.93 billion with a B. That's a lot of money. Here's what you can do with $1 billion. You could probably house, or you could probably give each Maui resident like $50 million or something crazy like that. Like, that's $1 billion is a lot. And they got it near $2 billion in additional funding since 2018. So, Chicago Public Schools, it's a hell. All right, I do want to shift gears. Let's talk about Rand Paul. I have to take a break, but when we come back, Rand Paul, he made an announcement that he is never Nikki. Now, here's the thing. We're going to talk about the uniparty, the Yankees versus the Cowboys, and how Nikki Haley is actually the establishment, and I think they would prefer Nikki Haley, the establishment, the Democrats, the Rhino Republicans. They would prefer Nikki Haley over Joe Biden because Nikki Haley will provoke us into every single war known to man. That's next on the buzz. I'm freezing. Good morning. This is the morning buzz. Yes, it said -9 in my car as I was driving in this morning. It's probably going to warm up a little bit. We're going to have a heat wave next weekend. It's going to be 20 degrees warmer than it was last weekend. So, yeah, it's pretty cold. It's hard to heat the house when it's this cold. It's hard to keep my fingers warm. My lips are chapped. My face is chapped. Coming into the studio this morning, so stay safe out there. We've got your weather forecast. Typically at the top of the hour, every 20 minutes after the hour. So keep it eared to Cities 92.9. If you hear anything wonky on air today, it's just because the winter storm took out a receiver of ours, I believe. So we're working on that. A couple of the shows over the weekend were really wonky, some silences, some things overlapping. So just remain patient. Just stay patient. We'll get it all fixed up. Governor J.B. Pritzker has sent a letter to Texas Governor Greg Abbott urging the Republican administration to stop sending illegal immigrants to Chicago as temperatures have plunged to dangerous levels. Yes, where are we going to house them all? For several months, the Abbott administration, he has been contracting with a private bus and plane company to carry these illegal immigrants from the southern border to Democrat strongholds that have identified themselves as sanctuary cities. And Abbott has uh, said that this is what he's got to do. The border is chaotic. He doesn't have room for him. You're a sanctuary city. You said that. And Governor J.B. Pritzker is now telling him, please stop. The temperatures have plunged to dangerous levels. Look, what we need to do is have Governor J.B. Pritzker send a letter to Joe Biden and force Biden to close the border. We need to put up some border wall. Okay. So this is the last day of open enrollment, by the way, for ACA health insurance marketplace, which is actually it's Tuesday because today is MLK Day. The deadline has been extended an additional day because today is MLK Junior Day. This is a holiday. We're going to get to the history of MLK Jr. and specifically this beautiful quote he had. It's not the color of your skin, but rather it's the content of your character. So we'll get to that after I talk about Rand Paul a bit because on Thursday he said he was going to make this announcement for the 2024 presidential race. And, we knew something was up, but then I thought he was going to endorse, he could have said, I'm for DeSantis or I'm for Trump. But the Kentucky senator here, Rand Paul, he said some things about other candidates. He said some really nice things. He said some things he liked about all of the candidates: Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Robert Kennedy, Donald Trump. But there's one candidate he is 100% not endorsing, and that's Nikki Haley. I've brought this up several times. The Uniparty, the establishment, the Yankees and the Cowboys. The Cowboys, big Texas oil. They are the military industrial complex. They want to be they want America to be thrust into war because they make all kinds of money off of war. The Democrats, they're kind of like the big banks. This is the finance type folk. They're like the Hillary Clintons, the Bill Clintons. Think of George Bush when you're thinking Cowboys, okay? The Yankees and the Cowboys. They all want to be thrust into some sort of war. JFK was shot because he would not be provoked into war. The CIA constantly lied to him, gave him bad intelligence, so that way that he would have no option but to go to war with Russia. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. And he would not be provoked into war. He tried to de escalate. Uh, and they killed him because of it, the Uniparty. Okay, the CIA and the Uniparty, the Cowboys and the Yankees. They killed JFK, assassinated him because he was a populist, he was a nationalist president who was anti-war. Donald Trump is a nationalist populist president who is anti-war. Look what they're doing to him. Nixon, they this whole Watergate scandal, completely fake, and they did the same thing to him because he wouldn't be provoked into war. So Rand Paul, he gets out there and he says, "Never Nikki." And here's the thing about Never Nikki. Nikki is probably somebody they want instead of Joe Biden. So instead of running somebody like a Gavin Newsom, the Democrat Party is saying, well, maybe we'll just get behind Nikki secretly as Democrats, and we'll try to unseat Donald Trump, maybe an Operation Chaos of some kind, where Democrats, via the primary, go out and they vote for Nikki. So Rand's big announcement was this launch of Never Nikki Net. So this is an actual web page, and he announced this web page, and this actually nevernikki.net. Nevernikki.net. He goes, this is what Rand Paul said. He said, I'm not ready to make a decision, but I am ready to make a decision on someone who I cannot support. So I'm announcing this morning that I'm Never Nikki. Based on her record and her campaign, I don't see how any thoughtful or informed libertarian or conservative should vote for Nikki Haley. So Rand Paul is actually collecting signatures, and this operation is paid for by his U.S. Senate campaign. And hey, I'm all here for it. He's collecting signatures for this campaign. It's called Never Nikki, and this is nevernikki.net, and you can go there and pledge Never Nikki. But Senator Rand Paul's video announcement was then followed by a lengthy Twitter thread, and there was all kinds of reasons why we shouldn't go for Nikki. Uh, Here we go. This is what one person said on Twitter. They said, while most others were decrying the mistakes of the past 20 years and fighting for an American first foreign policy, Nikki was aligning herself and declaring her foreign policy allies to be John McCain and Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham Lindsey Graham, John McCain, these people want war because she's like sits on the board for Boeing. Okay, so she gains all kinds of money and all kinds of support from her cronies if she provokes or if she throws us into a war. Beyond the issue of endless wars, Nikki's lack of respect for freedom of speech is shocking to anyone who believes in the Constitution. This is what Senator Rand Paul said. Haley believes that all internet uh, posters should be registered and verified. This flies in the face of a free American public whose founders wrote anonymously the Federalist Papers and routinely posted newspaper articles and pamphlets under pseudonyms. So the Federalists, right, the founders, they wrote the Federalist Papers anonymously. So this whole anonymous posting thing and these pseudonyms, that's nothing new. That's just a staple of a free American republic. If you want to move quickly to domestic policy in South Carolina, Nikki Haley advocated for a gas tax hike, a state run vaccine registry, and never lifted a finger for school choice. So, if you look at her domestic policy, she has a terrible record. If you look at her campaign, she did say that on the campaign that she wanted to have a registry and a verification system where if you use social media, you have to register and verify yourself. Nikki Haley routinely praised the mission of the United Nations, the results they achieved, and the people who ran it. I believe the United Nations does valuable work. By that, she means your taxpayer dollars, since the U.S. is a primary funder of the UN. Down with the UN. Down with the UN. So we'll see how all the other candidates have fun with this later on today. I'm sure they're going to have fun with this Never Nikki campaign, but I'm totally here for it. Uh, and the Iowa caucuses is finally taking place today. It will either be the beginning of the end, or we'll get 6 more weeks of campaigning from Nikki. So we'll have to see. Nikki Haley is definitely the Democrats' pick. I do have to take a quick break. You're listening to The Morning Buzz. Text me at 309-451-9299. Thanks so much for tuning in each and every morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. We will be getting to this. Are Democrats forcing Americans to house illegals in their homes? Well, Elon Musk, he didn't say that illegals were coming for your homes, but rather he said that the progressives are going to make it to where and there is no other option but to house illegals in your homes. So let's start with a little bit of reading comprehension here. No, Elon Musk did not say illegals were coming for your homes. He implied that the cities, aka progressives who run those cities, would be coming for your homes. So this is a tweet. He says, "This is what happens when you run out of hotel rooms. Soon cities will run out of schools to vacate. Then they will come for your home." So, of course, he's referencing this Brooklyn high school, and they actually had to shut down for the day. And they sent taxpayer families made up of legal American citizens, by the way. They sent these people or sent these kids to remote learning for the entire day. They had to shut down the day for the day because they needed to house the illegal migrants, and they needed a place to go. So the Brooklyn High School they shut down, and they acted as some sort of housing facility for these illegal migrants. Brooklyn has voted Democrat, predominantly Democrat. This is their fault. Make no mistake, but the kids, they aren't of voting age. And now we're not getting paid like the taxpayers, they pay for the services at the Brooklyn High School. Okay. It's a public school. And now they're not getting that service that they paid for because now they're shutting down. They're doing remote learning. They're robbing from the taxpayer. And this is this is, of course, Elon Musk is being told or is being dismissed as misinformation, disinformation, and they're saying that would never happen. Of course, the fake news media. But here's the thing: Democrats have already said out loud that this is going to happen. That's next on the Morning Buzz. Hi there. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. We're back with Jerry Vogler for Veterans Corner. That happens every Monday morning at approximately 8:05 a.m. We will be talking about Elon Musk. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. You can always text me at 309-451-9299. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and we will be chatting with Jerry Vogler from the McLean County VA. Elon Musk, we'll get to Kevin Hart. I read a digital detox book, a little bit of it, and I've got some tips and tricks to get rid of the social media addiction, the phone addiction, and something that Kevin Hart said on the Joe Rogan podcast really made me want to talk about this morning. So, another quick thing, Trump's campaign released this video. It had like 2.7 million views in just like 5 hours of it being up on Trump's Instagram page. This is incredible. This TV ad. It's like a White House senior living facility. I think it's satire, but it feels so realistic that it's not satire. Um, we'll talk about it here on the Buzz. You're listening to Cities 92.9. Mm, 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 It's freezing outside. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in each and every morning, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. We are going to be hitting Veterans Corner here with Jerry Vogler. He's from the McLean County VA. Jerry, good morning. Are you staying warm, my friend?
I am.
Yeah, trying anyway. It's freezing. But I'm glad that you're here, folks. Every Monday morning, we do Veterans Corner, which is at about 8:06 a.m. every morning. So the VA, they're expanding technology to improve VA care. Tell me about this ride sharing program, this new VA ride sharing program, eligible veterans who need transportation to medical appointments.
Yeah, the VA has kind of been behind the eight ball a little bit in that VA healthcare is fantastic right now. However, if you can't get to it, it becomes kind of superfluous that you've got it. And a lot of the problem is transportation, and a lot of the problems are in the bigger cities right now. And VA has now contracted with Uber under a program called VHA Uber. Healthcare, and it's reliable, it's cost effective, and most importantly, it has become very popular with veterans. It's been a study going on since May on the use of Uber to get veterans to their appointments. Now, most veterans that have service-connected disabilities can use the Uber service through the VA. And because they don't have to pay anything up front because Uber is all done over the phone by the contracting company, they never see a bill, and they also don't have to wait for their reimbursement for transportation expenses. And of course, lower income people that qualify can also use that service. Interestingly enough, in the first month that it was in service, it had 174 trips paid through Uber, and that increased to 7,316 trips in November in the Pittsburgh VA area. 4 out of 5 people that are surveyed have given it a very high rating and really appreciate being able to get their appointments. I don't know that it's here yet, although Uber and Lyft and a few of the other carriers are located here in Bloomington Normal. How soon they will implement that, there's a lot of variables. One is the number of people that need it, and it's in a pecking order by need. So that will be coming down the line for us here shortly. Anybody can browse VHA Uber Health Connect on the internet to obtain more information, and all referrals for that service would be through the primary provider at the VA.
Wow. All right. Well, this seems like something that veterans are taking to. And if a lot of veterans like this service, then it must be working, right? The VA or the VHA Uber service had a 4 out of 5 ranking on this survey. So, or 4 out of 5 veterans approve of it, right, Jerry?
Correct. Correct.
Awesome. Well, there's another thing that we've got to hit here on Veterans Corner. The VA, they did a study on narcotic drugs for PTSD care. So tell me about this. The Department of Veterans Affairs, they've issued a request for applications for clinical trials of this psychedelic assisted therapies using mushrooms and ecstasy. So tell me, Jerry, is this actually helping post-traumatic stress disorder?
This could be a major, major breakthrough for veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. Many veterans have used it over a time with private carriers and so forth. The VA has never accepted even marijuana for any treatment of post-traumatic stress or depression. This study that is ongoing right now can be tapped into by going back through their primary care provider and saying, could I get into that program where they're studying the effects of it? This is after the first time in about 6 decades that the VA has even looked at it, and the very first time that the VA has done their own intensive studies, because they've never allowed the use of the narcotics to begin with. Now they're using them so they can study them. A person that wants to find out more about the VA looking at widely associated with illicit party cultures type of drugs, including magic mushrooms and ecstasy and a number of other ones. They can get more information by browsing VA PTSD studies on ecstasy and magic mushrooms. And there'll probably be a place there for them to sign up through their primary care provider. But it's a big deal because a lot of veterans are reporting pretty good results with a calming effect and less depression.
Interesting. I've got a question before we move on with the rest of Veterans Corner. It comes from a friend of mine here on the text line. He says, I've been utilizing my civilian physician for the 20 plus past years to care for my various issues that are probably most definitely service related. And then he says, how do I go about starting the process with the VA or filing a claim that my fellow veterans keep telling me that I should? How do I go about that process?
There's several things that they need to do. The first one, item that they need to look at primarily is to get an intent to file claim form filed. Essentially what that does is it notifies the VA. It will then give them 12 months to complete their claim for consideration by the VA for service-connected disability compensation. Because the important part of that is it begins the clock running as if the claim is filed on the intent date rather than the date that the filing is actually completed as far as back pay award is concerned. So it's really important to get that filled out. Get a copy of their military records, especially for medical, to see if there's anything there that codifies what they have had happen to them that could be service connected. Then I would suggest that they go to the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs rep at the Armory, Michelle Hanson-Holbach, and set an appointment up with her. If they call our office first, we can kind of discuss it in more detail about the process to do it. But get it filed and continue to use your VA healthcare, because if you're treated for those maladies that may be service connected by the VA, it speeds the whole process up, because one of the things that they do at the VA, once they determine that something is service connected, they've got to determine what condition that medical condition is in, so that they can rate it 0 to 100%. And if they can get that information from the VA for treatments that the veteran is used, it speeds up the process rather than going to have to civilian doctors and hospitals and so forth.
All right. Well, thanks for answering that question. I hope that answered our friend's question here on the text line. You guys can always text in at 309-451-9299 or throw your question in the comments section on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. 2023 end of the year veteran benefits update. So veterans have applied for benefits at record rates over the past year, surpassing the previous all-time record of 39%. So the VA has been able to deliver more earned benefits than ever before, including 150 billion in benefits during 2023 alone. So tell me about that. Tell me about this 2023 year as it pertains to veterans applying for benefits and receiving those benefits.
One of the reasons that things have increased in usage of VA type benefits especially for service connected compensation is the PACT Act, and the PACT Act was passed in August of 2022. It's taken about a year to really get its feet on the ground as far as how it's going to be handled, but the entire VA service connected disability benefit program distributed $150 billion of benefits in 2023 alone. And the PACT Act is an act that re-looked in detail the various toxic exposures that a lot of veterans, in fact, most of us are exposed to it at one level or another, to make it easier for them to be identified as service-connected and therefore get rated for service-connected disability. It also is an encouragement to get those things filed as soon as possible because during the pandemic, the backlog of claims got quite large, over half of a million. Today, in order to meet the 125-day resolution of claims goal, they've added a number of people. The current backlog has risen to 378,000 at the present time. So it has caused a backlog in having these additional claims, but 2024 should be a return to normal levels since now all the VA is back working on site or redesign the job so they can do their job remotely efficiently.
Well, that's great news. And, VA benefits that goes beyond, healthcare. There's even life insurance. So VA insurance first year results. So the VA announced last week its new guaranteed acceptance life insurance program. Uh, so tell me about VA Life and how much they've actually issued to veterans just this year.
Well, interestingly enough, VA life is something that most veterans don't think about, nor does the general public, because most of us in relatively good health can go out and get some health care coverage, even if it's a small policy, 10,000, 20,000, in order to do end of life type of activities, funerals and so forth. The VA found that veterans with service connected disabilities above a certain level had one heck of a hard time getting any kind of life insurance at all. So they have set up a program with a conglomerate of health or life insurance policy companies that veterans age 80 and younger can now get up to $40,000 of whole life insurance through this veterans program. It's been going along for about a year now, and they've already signed up 31,400 veterans. As the word gets out a little more out in the public domain for veterans, they expect that to increase sharply. The cost of dying is extremely expensive these days, and at least they can save the family some heartbreak and financial troubles at the time of the veteran's passing. So veterans can apply online through va.gov, which is a website, and receive an instant decision. So they don't have to wait for, medical background and whether you're eligible for the program health-wise and all this type of thing. And it's guaranteed with no medical underwriting required. So it's a really good program. A lot of veterans with disabilities have found it almost impossible to get any type of life insurance.
Yeah, because who's going to insure you? Yeah, but I like this va.gov and receive an instant decision. So I do want to get to the commentary or to your quote of the day and your comments about the quote of the day. So what's the quote of the day today, Jerry?
So the quote of the day itself is from Ronald Reagan. And basically it says that the government exists to protect us from each other. Where government has gone beyond its limits is in deciding to protect us from ourselves, putting all types of regulations that say you're too foolish, you're too stupid, to know what is good for you. And they're banning things over the years that are personal choices. It's silly labels like a box of new steak knives that you buy will have a disclaimer on the side that says, "Be careful, there are sharp instruments in this box." This kind of stupid stuff that simply adds to the price of the product and makes the the member of the public, especially veterans, look at it and say, "Why are they spending all their time on these trivial things that don't do anything except limit our freedoms?" when they should be paying attention to things that really need to be addressed, like the southern border is probably the primary one right now.
Well, I love the quote of the day, and that is actually from Ronald Reagan. Like you said, government exists to protect us from each other. Where government has gone beyond its limits is in deciding to protect us from ourselves. I love that quote. And Jerry Vogler, thank you so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz for Veterans Corner. And we'll talk again on Monday.
Yeah, can I add one thing?
Yes.
The National Vice Commander of the American Legion for this region is going to be at the Hayworth American Legion. If anybody would like to go down, veteran or otherwise, and meet the National Vice Commander, they're welcome to do that. The meeting will be about noon. If they're there a little bit before, that's great. He will give a speech. It's a national membership caravan where it encourages all the local posts in all the local states to hit the trail to add to the membership of the Legion, which, like most service organizations, and especially veterans organizations, are running short of new people coming in. So if they would like to go down there, Hayworth Post today at noon.
I love it. And that's open to the public, right? So tell me where it's going to be at again.
It's going to be at the Hayworth American Legion, and that's just off the downtown section to the east of the downtown section when you come on through the main drag. And it just happens to be, if you turn at the American Legion post, which is on 150, it'll take you right back to where the Legion's at.
Wonderful. Jerry Vogler, you have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much.
All righty. Thank you. Have a great day and stay warm.
All right, folks, we're back on Cities 92.9 next. Good morning. Hey, if you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. I like Henry's quote of the day. You can never do more than your duty. You should never wish to do less. Robert E. Lee. I love it. And PTSD, his loss of faith, his wife, friends, and brother, brother in arms. Love and support, bringing back to God's grace. I'd have to check this out, Chad. Um, this former Navy SEAL CIA operator, Sean Ryan, in his podcast, and how he talks about the discussion of psychedelics and mushrooms and how that helps out service members. So, or well, veterans. We're going to get into Elon Musk. He had a tweet out there, and he was kind of blasting the progressive run cities, saying that, hey, when you run out of hotel rooms, you got to start moving them into schools. And when you start moving them into schools, you got to vacate the schools, and eventually you're going to run out of schools. So you're going to have to take the illegal immigrants and move them into houses. So I bet that's coming down the line. Elon Musk, he's embroiled in this controversy. People are saying, throwing out the words mis and disinformation when it comes to Elon Musk's tweet here. But it's really not that all much. It's not that far of a stretch to say that illegal immigrants are going to be housed in your home, because we've got congressmen, we've got Democrats saying that out loud. So I don't know how the fake news media can dismiss this as misinformation or disinformation, because it's not actually false. That's already kind of happening now. Democrats have already said citizens might need to house illegals, which is a huge violation of the Third Amendment if they do this via force. Now, it's totally up to you, right? If you want to house illegal immigrants in your home, I don't recommend it. Being that a lot of them are military aged fighting men who might have priors. We've seen a couple of cases. Gabriel Calixto. We've got Albiro Vasquez Roman out of Chicago. That's a Sound of Freedom esque type situation where he was forcing women into prostitution in this migrant shelter in Chicago. But we'll talk about it here on The Buzz. Smash the like button if you're watching. Wowza, Elon Musk, he's embroiled in yet another controversy. He tends to do that on Twitter. He gets into all these controversies. This time, he's implying that when we run out of schools to displace American students from, you are going to be expected to house illegals in your home. Now, the words misinformation and disinformation are being thrown around, but I don't really think it's that far of a stretch to say that these progressive run cities, these Democrats are going to force you to house illegal immigrants in your home. So let's start with a little reading comprehension, shall we? And then eventually I do want to get to Kevin Hart's terrifying experience with phone addiction. This weekend I did read the book. It's called Digital Detox. She's a Christian writer. And I'm gonna talk about Kevin Hart being on the Joe Rogan podcast, because this is gonna wake you up to the dark side of social media, the endless scrolling, and how bad it is, and how bad it is for you. So it's a new year, so I figured I'd give you some tips and tricks that I use. Kevin Hart's experience is interesting. He has some tips and tricks, so uh, I'll talk about that here in about 5-10 minutes. It is very cold outside. I think it's a -4 in my truck today. So stay safe out there. On our Cities 929 webpage, you can find warming centers. And this isn't just for homeless people. This is for those who furnaces are not keeping up, or their furnace went out and they don't have heat. There's all kinds of warming centers, the Bloomington Public Library, Walmart, Uptown Station, Abundant Life Christchurch. There's some food pantries going on. I would go to their Facebook page to find out more from Abundant Life. But there's all kinds of information at cities929.com if you need it. Information available about the warming centers and services available during this freezing weather. It should be warming up here by Tuesday. But for now, stay warm. So, like I said, Elon Musk, let's start with a little bit of reading comprehension here. because I don't know how these fake news media outlets are looking at this and saying misinformation, this is disinformation. How could Elon say that illegals are coming for your homes? That's not true. Well, first off, he didn't say that. No, Elon did not say illegals were coming for your homes. He implied that cities, aka progressives who run these cities, would come for your homes and force you to house them. So Elon, he says, this is what happens when you run out of hotel rooms. Soon cities will run out of schools to vacate, then they'll come for your homes. So, of course, in this tweet, he's referencing the Brooklyn High School. They shut down for an entire day and they sent these taxpaying families, made up of legal American citizens, mind you, to remote learning. So they forced the kids to go into remote learning. There's a big problem with that because now you've got taxpayer funded services. Public schooling is a taxpayer funded service. We pay for it. Your teachers are supposed to provide service, which is teaching, and we pay their salaries via tax money. Okay. These public schools don't create a product, they don't sell anything. They profit bigly, okay, off of the backs of the taxpayer. So, anyway, this Brooklyn High School shuts down for an entire day because they have to house these illegal migrants. And because they need a place to go because the hotels in New York City and in Brooklyn and Chicago, they are overbooked. They are overfilled. And now we have to start housing them in publicly funded buildings, which would be schools. So uh, I want to point this out. Brooklyn voted 74% Democrat Joe Biden, for Democrat Joe Biden, 74% in 2020. Then in 2022, they voted 72% for Democrat Kathy Hochul. Now, this is a Democrat congresswoman, and her name is Yvette Clarke, and she won re-election with 81% of the vote. That's a lot, folks, in there. She's winning. Now, she said the quiet part out loud about the border. This is a quote from her. She said, as it pertains to the illegal migrants, she said, I need more people in my district just for redistricting purposes. This is what she said. That's the quiet part out loud. What? That's not, is that even legal? Can you take illegal immigrants and put them in your district so that way you have more voters to come out and vote for you? And she didn't even really need it. She got 81% of the vote anyway. But yes, that's the New York congressman or congresswoman Yvette Clarke. Now, journalismers, they're all attacking Elon because he stated the obvious. He said the obvious thing out loud. And no, Democrats aren't saying the literal words, we're coming for your homes. But they're not going to say the obvious words, we're coming for your homes. You guys remember the whole gas stove thing? So last January, it was reported that the Biden administration was considering a ban on gas stoves in your home. Other Democrats are on record saying that's a good thing. Okay, not just Joe Biden or the Biden administration, but other Democrats have come out and said that that's a good thing. This caused a lot of bad PR for Joe Biden, okay? Because people love their gas stove. A lot of people have a gas stove and not an electric stove. So what the media did, they were dispatched to call it fake news. But a few days later, we start to see Democrat governors, Democrat mayors start banning gas stoves. Don't believe me? Look at the town of Normal. The town of Normal banning gas stoves. Okay. They have an ordinance out there where anything built after a certain year or something has to be all electric. They're moving for this Uptown 2.0 to use all electric. So thereby, de facto, you can't use a gas stove. That's banning gas stoves. Okay. Utilities have to be all electric if you're in this Uptown Normal 2.0 project. That's putting a ban on gas stoves. If you're a restaurant who wants to, build or move into one of these vacant spaces in Uptown 2.0, you cannot use gas stoves. You just can't because it's got to be all electric. First municipality to do something like this, it's kind of wild. And Democrat governors, they started banning gas stoves. Democrat mayors, Chris Coos, started banning gas stoves. We see this. Democrats have already said that citizens might need to start housing illegals. That's nuts. And you're probably like, well, Kat, what's the big deal? Why don't we just house the illegals? Well, here's the thing. There's a little thing called the Third Amendment. And Democrats are going after and attacking this Third Amendment, and they just don't care about it, the Third Amendment. Now in Melrose, Massachusetts, they're holding an event called Exploring the Host Home Experience, okay, to encourage residents to house illegals in their home. This is an actual event. A few months ago, the governor actually asked citizens to take illegals into their homes. So this is happening. Elon Musk, it's not disinformation, it's not misinformation. This is happening. Progressives, Democrats, they want you to house these illegals in your homes. Massachusetts is the only state in the nation right now. It's a right to shelter state, and they've got a law which means that the state has to provide shelter for anyone who needs it. That is a right to shelter state. So Elon is right when he says they're going to start forcing you to house the illegals in your home. Okay, journalismers are at once or are at this stage right now where they are they claim anybody repeating Democrats have said out loud is spreading misinformation. Okay, this is the stage they're at. What is the next stage? You know, the next stage is for them to force you to take illegal immigrants into your home. And the next stage is gaslighting you and saying that, yeah, well, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to force you to house illegals in your home. But you get all kinds of cool things like $1,000 a month or something like that, or all kinds of benefits. And, it's an emergency and do your part and, stay at home. Oh, wait, no, that was the pandemic. And you got a cheeseburger if you got vaccinated, a free cheeseburger if you got vaccinated anyway. Um, See what they're doing. They're going to say it's an emergency. They're going to offer you all kinds of incentives to do this, host an illegal, explore the host home experience. They're going to call it hosting your home or whatever. So you see where this is going, don't you? And keep in mind that Joe Biden, you know, he doesn't think that there's a crisis at the border. Remember when he said there was no crisis at the border? What's the next stage to all of this? I think you know. I think you know the answer to that rhetorical question. All right, I'm back next on the Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. It's cold out there. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Stay tuned for your forecast. We do them at the every 20 minutes or so, right here on Cities 92.9. It's supposed to get warmer, a heat wave actually, 20 degrees warmer by next weekend, but it's pretty cold. You can find all the warming centers at cities99.com. Uh, Before we took the break, we were talking a little bit about Elon Musk, this tweet that he put out there. And look, I don't think that we're too far off from Democrats, progressives, especially these progressives in the cities. They're probably going to start mandating that you do your fair share or you do your part and you house an illegal immigrant. They're already doing this in Melrose, Massachusetts. The governor came out and asked citizens to take illegals into their homes. They actually hosted an event called Exploring the Host Home Experience, and they encouraged residents to house illegals in their homes. Massachusetts is a right to shelter state where the law says that the state has to provide shelter to anyone who needs it. Okay, so I do want to talk about this hour. Smartphones. They're super cool, but they're becoming a big problem, and they've gotten people hooked on their social media feeds. Now, I've been reading this book over the weekend. It's called Digital Detox, and when your phone is in your hand, you're tempted to play the 20 different free games that you've downloaded, or you say something like, "Oh yeah, I have to buy this on Amazon." And, there's all kinds of short term memory loss that comes with using social media. IQ scores, they're down. And it's a problem. And it's one that I've been concerned with for a couple of years now. And, I was reading this book and I actually was scrolling and found this clip of Kevin Hart on the Joe Rogan podcast. And he shares a story about when he realized he was addicted to social media, his smartphone, and he said it turned into a curse than a blessing. It was more of a curse than a blessing, my smartphone. So he makes two key points. The sudden realization of being an addict, and you have to, come to terms that I am an addict, and we are all too reliant on our cell phones or on our smartphones. So he said when his phone died, he was on a road trip and he didn't know where to go, who to call. I don't know, like, I don't have a whole lot of numbers memorized. I know my dad's, my mom's, and my brother. So I would probably call my dad and ask him for directions because he doesn't have a smartphone. And for some odd reason, he knows where everything is on the map. Uh, I swear he's like a cartographer or something. But Hart also pointed this out that, our kids watch us. They're constantly watching and they pick up bad device habits from us. And that's what Digital Detox, this book, is all about. And what I read, I recommend the book. But after watching this clip, I started to look at my own life and I realized how addicted I am to the scroll. Sometimes I just like scroll and I'm not even looking at it. That's how bad it is. I don't even read it and I'm just scrolling. No phones at the dinner table is something that I started with my family. And you might get some pushback, not just from the kids, but from the adults at your dinner table. Perhaps the wife pushes back a bit, or your husband pushes back a bit on that. I also wear a watch. Part of the problem with me is, I grab my phone to check the time, and I wind up scrolling on Twitter or checking an email, and then I totally forget to check the time. So wearing a watch cuts that down on checking the time. I also listen to the radio instead of listening to Spotify or Apple Music, or I listen to vinyl or like a CD. I know you're like, what? Why would you do that if you have a smartphone and you have 11 different Bluetooth speakers? Well, I love music, but I grew up dependent on my phone to listen to it. I didn't grow up with the CDs or the vinyls or even the radio. Okay. I've always had a phone that plays music uh, from what I can remember. And when you're listening on Spotify on your phone, you're tempted to change the song. And when you go to change the song, you're tempted to even go into your Twitter, to go into your email and start scrolling. Go outside, touch some grass, have a politics free weekend. I always try to do politics free Saturdays. And people are like, what? There's no such thing as being politics free. Newsflash: the boogeyman isn't going to finally launch its end game against the American people because you decided to log off for a Saturday to spend some time with your family and get some fresh air. So take care of yourself. Retrain your brain to accept that the world is just going to get along fine without you if you're disconnected and if you aren't connected 24/7. Um, when you come back on Monday, I will fill you in on everything that sucks, everything that's terrible, and oh my gosh, did you hear somebody? They did this, they did that, they did this. Take care of yourself, disconnect. I do have to take a break. You're listening to the Morning Buzz. Speaking of news, we've got a ton of it to hit before we wrap up the show today. You're listening to Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, if you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. We're back. Gotta quickly tell you about Prairie High School. The principal, he lost his battle. He put himself in harm's way um, to protect the students from this Iowa mass shooter who is gender fluid. So we are going to chat a little bit about that and Trump trolling Joe Biden with this hilarious senior living ad. I just absolutely love it. Like I said, smash the like button. Morning Buzz, or that's Cat Peterson 929 on YouTube, and you can find me on Twitter, and also on Facebook. Okay. All right. Now I've got to tell you guys about this Trump trolling ad. It's a hilarious White House senior living ad, and I think it's gonna play. Let's take a listen. Here we go. This has gotten, or it got like 2.7 million views in just like 5 hours of it being up on Trump's Instagram page. Here we go.
Round the clock professional care. At White House Senior Living, our residents feel right at home. Our vibrant facility offers delightful activities and outings, round the clock professional care, and exquisite house-made meals.
Well, I've been eating everything that's put in front of me. I've been eating all Italian food, basically.
Ice cream.
And ice cream, chocolate chip ice cream.
So
White House Senior Living.
double rolling, nailed it with this ad, all the way down to the chocolate ice cream where residents feel like presidents phrase. Okay, so it ends the TV commercial, ends the satire ends with him downing this ice cream cone, like putting the entire thing in his mouth. So this is an unflattering moment. Uh, and the narrator's voice said, "Around the clock, professional care." And there were a bunch of awkward shots of the current president, Joe Biden, at the beach eating food and him nodding off a couple of times, which has happened. CNN, they're going to say that this is all fake news, that the clips are taken out of context. But I'm more concerned about the real question here. Who in the world eats an ice cream cone like Joe Biden? Like, why is he doing that? Isn't he worried about the brain freeze that will come after that bite? I mean, he takes this massive bite. Isn't he concerned about the brain freeze? This is elder abuse. To have this man be the leader of the free world. The average age of a U.S. senator, by the way, is 65 years old. And I get it, Trump. He's not what you would call young, but hey, at least he's competent, and he is running for president. And Joe Biden doesn't even know he's running for president. And, like I said, Joe Biden sleeping, falling asleep. He's fallen asleep more times than I can count. Well, that's going to do it here for us on the morning buzz. Like I said, there might become some slight hiccups with the programming today. We're going to try to work out those kinks. Up next, it's Glenn Beck, Dan Bongino, Sean Hannity, Mark Levin. And you can always find me on social media and on YouTube. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Bye bye. I love you.